Hello, good day. My name is Grant Abbott. For context, I'm out in Musgrave Harbour, Newfoundland. I decided to do a video off the cuff, out of my head, as opposed to responding to individual message, because it's difficult to be keeping up on all these individual messages. Like I said in one of my posts there, texts tend to be, or words tend to be, things being told. It's not for conversation. It's not for going back and forth. Generally, when people write things, they already have their opinion made about what that means. And when they write it, that's their position. And that's what they're going to be told. In order for anybody to differ on that point, then you've got to communicate back and forth in order for it to change that person's mind. Otherwise, that position is always going to be the same. And that's the psychology of this particular situation. Ever since the beginning, when I was elected and started in the council, no one's afforded me the benefit of being able to speak in full sentences and to be heard and understood as a human would, as good people would expect other good people to do. Now, I know that sounds like a lot because, all these people, or at least some of these in context of the story, the people in the community know these other people involved in the situation, but you don't know me and you don't know my family. And because of the disconnect and the reality of me being in the community and interacting with the community, not being present as much, there happens to be a reality created by people filling in the blanks about what would this person be thinking in order for it to do these things and be happy with it and feel confident with it, because all the complications about the motives about why you think that I've gone through these things are being created with inside your head. And then you add on top of the situation, the concept about the hate site that was run by Franco Cazzola from up in Calgary. He's my sister's boyfriend, for God's sakes. The proof we had pulled it all together and had provided it to his employer, and the proof was clear enough for them to have a conversation with him and tell him to stop doing it, because it's not professional of such a person to be doing that kind of thing and to host hate sites for no apparent reason, especially being outside and having no vested interest in the community. It's quite suspicious on any person's scale of judgment of a situation. There's no real excuse. And really, that's what comes out in a lot of these stories and a lot of things that have been happening to us and our family in respect to how we got involved with the community. There's no good excuse on why these things are being done. And for anyone to validate these things happening to us or happening to our communities as being a good thing for whatever reason that you can figure out in your mind is solely within your mind and what you've created as being your reality. But it's not actually true in terms of what happened in the nitty gritty. As they say, the devil's in the details, and that's where the trouble comes, because it's easy to make assumptions about somebody and to make a quick decision about how to feel about the situation, because that's how the mind works. That's how humans work. That's survival. And you need to make immediate decisions and do what's best for you and your family. But we're not in the jungle or in any sort of ancient civilization anymore. We're civilized people that should be able to come to rational conclusions about people and make decisions about people based on the ethics that people flag as being virtues. A lot of these people in the community who have been talking really mean about me, they're the same people that go around wearing the pink shirts, and some of them even have issues in their family, disabilities and that kind of thing, or gone through issues with children such as we have, and my wife and my family with our premature children and the 9 months in the hospital. You figure that a little bit of compassion would be given, and a little bit of excuse, we'll say, to be given in that situation for margin of error, decisions that are made, or understandings that aren't quite understood by others, that people act in a certain way, that you would excuse those things because you don't know all the stories or how the person managed to get to that situation. We came here or I might as well do the story, I guess. We came here from Ontario after COVID was on the go. We actually caught COVID as a family after the family was born, and the kids were out of the NCIU, whatever it's called, NIU, or the NIC unit. About 5-6 months later, we all caught COVID, and we decided after lockdowns, everything was not very comfortable up there in Ontario, being stuck in an apartment. We knew that things were going to get worse. Things were quite terrible up there before we left. People wearing masks, gas masks in the grocery store. We were up there during the toilet paper shortages, so it was quite crazy to see all that happening around us. And we thought, after going through all this crap with the hospitals and the NIC units with our children, and one child would be in a hospital for 9 months, and me being at home taking care of the other children with grandma for those I think it's 6 months, actually 9 months, but these are the situations that that people call me a liar for, is because I have issues with my brain to remember the details. I may be on the flip or be misunderstood, but I'm always willing to be corrected. And that corrections come in conversation, collaboration, and cooperation, and exploration of issues. But again, none of this has been afforded to me while working on this town council or since living here. But we'll get into that a little later. So we decided to come home back to Newfoundland. We packed up the family, packed up the car, got grandma as well. Decided to come back to beautiful Hallmark card Newfoundland, Musgrave Harbour. We figured, Newfoundland's such a beautiful place. My wife thought it was such a beautiful group of people. The tourism industry and the general folklore and the allure of Newfoundland is quite sweet. And truth be told, there are a lot of good people here, or at least as they portray themselves, they're based in this goodness, we'll say, because we've been through a lot of hard issues, hard knocks here in Newfoundland, having to live through being poor, I guess we'll say, back in the 1800s and before, because there was a time when people in Newfoundland weren't even allowed to have chimneys based on the directive of England at one point. Now that's just going back a few years, but it just goes to show the passage of time and where our people have come from. Even our communities ourselves, the small communities, they haven't been too rich over the past in the 1900s, early 1900s, we'll say. It was difficult times. But we managed to get by getting by as a community. And this exists. This camaraderie does exist. But there's also a cutthroat type attitude that exists among Newfoundlanders that is not often spoke of. But I'll call a spade as it is. When Newfoundlanders are together and they have their clit or their clique, they're all tight and everything. But a lot of Newfoundlanders have observed that when Newfoundlanders go away and they come back and they try to reintegrate in the community, they're outsiders. They want them to fail, basically. When Newfoundlanders are away and they're together, they're also together. They're also good camaraderie, and they want everyone to be successful in that environment. But there's some sort of malice or some sort of underlying anger issue that exists among some Newfoundlanders who have this jealousy, I guess, of whatever comes of being away and whatever comes of being back. Also, some of these people have never lived away either, so they've got a different understanding of the world compared to other people. And that's not an insult. It is what it is. When I first went to Ontario and sat down next to Eglinton and watched those vehicles drive for 10, 15 minutes, never stopping, and the vehicles just kept coming, it was brain shocking to start to integrate in that society after living in a small community in Newfoundland. But I did, and I was successful, and we'll get to all those details in a moment. But we decided to come back to Newfoundland and reintegrate, and we thought that all this was going to be hunky-dory. I've been away for 25 years, and you'd figure any sort of issues that anybody were to have with somebody 25 years ago would basically have been gone away, or especially if it's not a serious issue. The point of saying that is that some people just don't have the insight to know where someone's coming from and what they say and why they're saying it, which is in and part and parcel of what the problem is here today in this community, and the problem with the which has gotten us here. So when we moved back here in the community, like before I came back, I was spending many hours in designing 2 different plans. I think it's best to mention this at this point because it's good for context. One plan was a food sustainability business, which basically was a cookie cutter idea that was meant to be shared with other communities in other parts of the province so that they would be able to be sustainable in food and manufacture their own food and be able to sell that food as well within the community. It was meant for the people to make money, because it's a business, but it was also meant to be altruistic and to create a solution to the problem of food stability in Newfoundland, because a lot of things are shipped in from Ontario, shipped in from California, and a lot of the food is rotten when it gets here. It's sitting on the docks in Halifax and it takes a while to get across sometimes, especially if it's in the winter. And the more times those doors are open, the more times it cools off and is recooled or warmed up and recooled or whatever, the more chances that it's going to wilt or get mold or turn bad. And we have really bad products here in Newfoundland because of that reason. So I reverse engineered a concept that was able to withstand Newfoundland's weather, Newfoundland's problems, and I factored in ways of getting water, and I factored in ways of being self-sustainable as a business, so that these things could be sized up and down and even used in places like Nunavut, for instance. I've also designed a 100% covered by charity community garden that I intended to bring home to Newfoundland when I got here, and offer to the town council to offer food sustainability to the town, so that it would bring people together to learn from the seniors, the older people who've been through this before, have a chance to meet on a regular basis in the community garden in the center of the community, hopefully, and to have food sustainability. A group of people can grow one group of food, another group of people can grow another group of food, and they can be sharing this food. Who needs a whole lot of potatoes? Grow a big potato area and share the potatoes, that kind of thing, and then other vegetables as need be. But, when I came to Newfoundland, it was during COVID. I waited about a year to actually, or waited 6 months or something before actually getting involved with the town council. So I became known or whatever around the community. Things were great. Everything was hunky-dory. Everyone was everyone I dealt with was all happy and interested to see that I was home. It was great getting out there in the community and doing things. We went to the beach and cleaned up with a group of ladies, but then things started going bad. I had interests in taking care of the graveyard down at Big Brook, because one of the graves are becoming exposed due to ATVs, and no one knows that they're driving over an actual grave. It's to the side, and there's tracks right near the head and the feet of this poor person that's been buried down there. There's a group of people, European people. I don't mean that in a discriminative way. They're related to the people that are still alive in the community to this day, and these people are very sad that there's people burning bonfires on top of their ancestors, and also it's something that it's not known. People think that there are Native Indians buried down there, which doesn't make it any better to be burning bonfires on top of them, but it needs to be known what it is and needs to be identified as a graveyard. So I approached the community about that and started interacting with them, and later on the contractors that I stirred up to get interest were told by the town that I had no association with the town, and the town wasn't doing anything with this, and they had no interest in it, so therefore everything stopped, everything died, and it's been a spot. And then there was some negativity that got spurred because of that, because of my involvement. People were thinking I was going to turn that space into a community garden. Like, why even create these kind of things? It's funny, but people believe this for some reason, and they stir stories up like this in other ways in their minds, because that's just what humans do. So before that, with the community garden, COVID was on the go. There was a different council. They didn't really understand what I was offering. Didn't understand what it meant. Didn't understand the variables about what financial contribution the town could or could not have. Now, later down the road, they spent $57,000 on a legal battle with me. So they did actually have extra funds to do weird things if they wanted to. So I offered to bring in a 100% covered by charity thing, but also I talked about the involvement of the community and what they can or cannot contribute to the concept. And also it was in the works of figuring out what could be done with it. And it wasn't fully understood, but it was quite damn well explained, because of the way my mind works. I think things through in a certain way, and it doesn't stop until I figure out solutions to all the variables that are in my head. And this causes problems with some people, because they think that I'm a know-it-all, because I already tend to have answers and argue about things, because I already have opinions on things before I'm asked about it. But I'm always open to other people contributing their ideas to allow me to have the opportunity to change my mind, to think differently than I did before. That's the part that a lot of people won't realize about me. They think I'm argumentative, but no, I'm just expressing my opinion and expressing my position. But my opinion can always change, as should everyone else in the community, and I also have an opinion open to being changed or to being incorrect as well. So during COVID, we couldn't meet in person with the town, and they didn't understand what was being offered. And I was persistent afterwards to try to have them make sure that they understood it was 100% covered by charity. And I wanted to schedule time with them so I could have a conversation, get on a telephone call with them, because COVID wouldn't let you visit in person. So, I listened remotely during a presentation of what I was offering, and I was, it was okay in terms of how they presented it, but in terms of how I would have presented it as a sales and customer service person, and my baby of an idea of how I want to demonstrate it, I was aghast, because I was like, no, that's not right. I can't. That's incorrect. Or whatever the situation. I like to add this, but I can't say it because I'm not live. I'm not there. So what exactly happened was that I had to be persistent in explaining myself afterwards about what my idea was. This was interpreted by the overworked clerk, who was already stressed out by things happening in the community, and I was the straw that broke the camel's back, because I brought a layer of persistence and a layer of professionalism as a sales and customer service representative, and with precautions in place and respects in place to present myself as a seasoned salesperson and presenting my idea in such a way. But it wasn't received that way, and the person ended up having a breakdown, according to a post that they made on Facebook, and they basically blamed it on me, and they told people not to vote for me. It would be throwing away their vote if they voted for me. Now, this is from a town clerk at the time who was employed as a town clerk. So the feelings of the town hall and the feelings of the employees of the town became bad about me early on, before I was even part of the council. And at this time, I was challenged to run for council, because if I had so much opinions about how the town should be run, having a town advocate page open, then I should run for council, and then at least I'll have some way of contributing to the things that I want to do and say as being a councilor. Now, later on down the line, that didn't actually happen. If you listen to audios and stuff, you can tell that no one actually listened to anything I had to say, and no one actually contributed to anything I had to say. At later points, when all the buttons were pressed and people were looking at us, there was some professionalism, there was some good times that we were able to communicate, but generally, the precursor to all this, it wasn't the case, and it wasn't respected that way. There was no respect being offered as a human or as a person wanting to contribute to the community. So at this point in time, there was a lot of things happening. There was a boil water order. I had a town advocate page open. I made public statements about things. I had opinions about things as an advocate, about a person wanting to be involved in the community, and a person who knows that things could be better than what they have been, and had ways of offering. When I ran for council, I listed out 50 different things or more, and I ran on accountability, transparency, municipal reform. So the idea was that I was going to make sure that the town was going to be accountable and transparent for what they do, and also I was going to change the way that municipalities worked. And I'm doing that on the provincial level, not just on the on the municipal level, because I'm dealing with the provincial people, and it has a direct influence on what happens here in the town, has an influence on what happens in other communities. So um, I, I I ran for council. Nothing happened as of this point in terms of anything offensive, any way that people should feel negative about me, except for people who were I was pushing their buttons of because they're involved in the processes of the town council or the processes of the town, whether that be contractors or whatever. Those are contractors, volunteers, 1 degree of separation from the town, cousins, husbands, for instance, of councillors, different people like that who have a direct connection to what's going on. And then there's a different level of people that I had flack back up from, and those are the people who are the merchants and the people who have vested interests in the stability of the town, and they're worried about the perception of what I'm doing, and worried about whatever I could do that could affect them in whatever way. But I'm not out to headhunt anybody. I'm out to change process, to make sure it's done fairly, to make sure it's done right, make sure that everybody has a fair shake at the opportunity, and also to make sure that the children who grow up, who are young, and they want to have an interest in contributing to their community, that they're able to influence their surroundings by speaking up and interacting with the town council on a level such as I did when I tried to speak about the community garden, for instance, and the graveyard and cleaning up the beach and different things like that we did before we got in trouble with the community and some of the people who have jumped on the flying monkey bandwagon. But these people could be mistaken in the way that they're acting, because a lot of people are emotionally balanced, emotionally responsive. They don't really sit down and think through the details, and if they don't have all the details, or they are told to feel a certain way, then they react emotionally first, based on the reality that they created from the stories in their head or what other people have told them, such as on the Musgrave Harbour hate site that was created about me. And I understand there's another one created about me now with polls and stuff like that. I'm not really interested. I'm happy that I brought the community together to hate me, at least. And if they can work together to make themselves love each other better because they've come together to hate me, then so be it. I know that I'm a good person. I've made good decisions, and I'm doing things on an ethical and value-based way of doing it, and lacking other information, such as you are lacking other information. I'm making decisions that are best suited for me and my family, and what's best for me to do. But I'm also open for influence from other people to change and to make me have to do things differently based on the influences around me. But again, this is not taking place here. People tend to be quickly judging and then becoming part of the group, becoming part of the mob. And, it's just human nature, but you have the opportunity to change, and you have opportunity to understand, learn, and don't let your ego, which is a thing, not a action, change. You have to be conscious that your ego is a thing, basically your reptile brain, I can't remember the name of the brain part, but the little tiny brain that makes you breathe and makes your heart move. It makes you act in certain ways as well. And you need to make sure that you don't pay attention to, or that not you don't pay attention to, but you actually, put it under control when it tries to influence you. And use your brain and logic in order for it to make decisions, while still listening to your emotions as well, though, because you need to be emotionally balanced. Point being to that is that, going into the becoming a councillor, I came in with high votes. I think it was like 49% of the community, 260 some odd people who voted. There's about 530 people who voted approximately. So whatever the numbers are, it's in relationship to the other votes. Some people were picking on me about what exactly the number is. It doesn't really matter, because the percentage is the same in relationship to the other people who had votes. So if mine was 49 and I'm inaccurate and it was 46, that means someone else was a 49 and I was a 46, and then theirs is not a 56, it's actually a 49. So it's again, the devil's in the details. And when you're not actually having a discussion with people openly and dynamically. You can't get into these details. And a lot of times people judge you based on the lack of information or the fact that you never fully explain a topic. And they say, look at the liar, he lied. And no, it's just a misunderstanding of information. If you were to have a conversation with me, I'd fully admit to my misunderstanding, and we'd correct myself, and I'd explain why I felt a certain way. And then we'd correct the information if it were incorrect. That's just the way good people act, functional people act. But unfortunately, it never happened at this town council. When we were elected, there were two people that were placed on council. I can fully well say that were placed there for the full purpose of opposing me, because they had no contribution in any positive way, shape, or form towards me. And me being a true empath, a person who can actually feel emotion, feel energy. I can't read minds, I can't tell the future, nothing like that, but I'm the opposite of a narcissist. I'm an empath. And that's the reason why some people think I'm a narcissist, because narcissists and empaths look very much the same. But they use the energy different, and they try to, and they don't do it in malicious ways. They use it to build the community as opposed to tear it down. Now you're looking at other people involved in the situation. I fully believe that they are the narcissists in the situation, especially the ones who are the key players in bringing this situation to here. Because when narcissists try to exact themselves on other people, they expect them to act in a certain way, and when they don't, then they first feel that it's a game, and then after it's not a game anymore, then it turns into an attack. And then at some point in the narcissistic process, they come to the conclusion that they can't let in and they can't let up and admit that they're mistaken. And now they're in this position where they can't go back. But unfortunately, when they meet a narcissist, they basically see, when they meet an empath, they see a mirror image almost of them, but they dislike what they see because it's the goodness of what they represent as being not good. I don't want to say evil, because people could be people could be not as I perceive, and people have the opportunity of changing their position. I group a lot of people into the same group because they're acting the same and they're active in the pursuit to attack me and hurt us and not try to find remedy. Back to how the council unfolded, there was no opportunity to discuss things. You'd figure good people would have a discussion. They would let other people speak. They would have them, express their full mind sentence, we'll say, or a full paragraph, we'll say, in terms of what the concept is. There's rules in the rules of regulation, letting people talk for a certain amount of minutes per time. This kind of thing was not happening in our council meetings. None of them happened in that way. And if anyone were to listen, as I say in my text messages or my Facebook messages, if anyone were to listen to any of these messages, town meetings, I should say, and the recordings of it, and they were to say, "Man, Grant's acting so mean there. He shouldn't have been talking that way," or he's not. It's being really antisocial, or whatever. And they were to look at the other people and say, "Wow, look, they're so sweet and they're so nice, and look, they're trying to give Grant the courtesy of doing that for that moment, but he took an opportunity to be mean and didn't follow that positive lead of the other person." That stuff never happened. It just did not happen. And if a person out there feels that I was treated well and the other people were treated me well and I treated people poorly, then I don't really appreciate your opinion. And I don't know why these people reach out and they talk to me. It may be that they're misunderstood, or they're simply narcissists looking to push buttons and put up a gaslighted reality for me to believe that is true. But I'm not going to do that. I've got a family. I came in on who need to look up to me and look at me with my values and my ethics and learn from me. I want to make the community better for children to interact and affect their environment, and not have a group of people be tyrants and have the last say in whatever they do, because that's exactly what's happening here, and that's no exaggeration. I do not say things lightly. If I say something, I say something because there's a reason why I say it, and I just don't explain myself well enough why I say it. And that's the reason why people need to discuss things in greater detail, and why a discussion needs to happen, as opposed to having me, just put things on the internet and responding to other people's straw man arguments, where they respond with a bunch of different things, and then I'm supposed to respond to those things. But the messages just get longer and longer, and there's lots of people who have different opinions, and I can't respond to everybody. This should happen at the town hall. All these issues, as an elected official, are political issues. They're things, policies, procedures, they're things that me as an elected person should have the ability to talk about, whether it's publicly on Facebook, or whether it's out in the community, or whether it's in a public meeting on a public broadcast. I was cut off in the last broadcast because I had a different opinion than what other people had in the room, and these people were aggressive people. It's very clear to see. I've had a lot of people who've listened to these messages, and they've confirmed with me that it's not just me. These people are very aggressive, and they shouldn't be acting that way. The decorum of how the meetings are made is not how a boardroom operates. It's a circus. It's Jerry freaking Springer. I swear to God. And anybody who thinks that a meeting should be operated the way that it has been, they do not have a favorable opinion in my head in terms of how I look at how to take their opinion. So remember how I said I like to take people's opinions and assess them and try to apply them to my own opinions. It's not going to happen with these people, especially if they're not willing to have conversations or assimilate information that I'm trying to tell them into what they understand, the way that I do it, because I'm open to other people's feelings. I'm very heartfelt. I watch TV and I look at different things and I think of different things, and I almost cry sometimes. I think I'll actually say I do cry sometimes. I'm not saying this to get sympathy. I'm just trying to say I'm a freaking human too. But no one's taken the time to have a conversation with me and discuss these things with me. And when people out there in the community respond to me in mean ways, in passing ways, just giving me a kick as they walk by on Facebook, such as when Shane made a comment about how my being public on Facebook some way affected how the address book of the town hall's poor password and email security resulted in that hack, and also email fraud, by the way, using email transfer fraud. They stole their address book and emailed everybody recently, trying to fish and get them to respond, to provide some information so they can get some money out of their banks. This is pretty serious. We're being targeted, and I'll get into that into a later conversation or later on in the line if I can get there. But within 3 months of being on council, not being able to communicate, not being able to speak properly, COVID was on the go. There was going to be vax passes coming down soon, and me as an elected person was being threatened by the town that if I didn't get vaccinated, then I was going to not be able to attend public meetings. And they added to the remote attendance policy, which was existing before, I understand, in a small way, and they added to it that if you're not vaccinated, then you can't participate remotely online, because that's not a good reason to not be attending in person. Now, for some reason, they think that that's a valid reason, not being able to attend in person, and that they can do this to an elected person. I'm elected. I represent the citizens. The citizens elected me based on whatever I said I was going to do, and me being available to be able to speak and do things is a fundamental right. And when I basically said, I'm going to fight this, and I don't believe that you can do this, and I told them what I was going to do about it, and I was, they did not listen to me. They decided to do it anyway. They knew full well that I was going to oppose it. So at that point in time, they knew that there was going to be issues, and there was going to be money spent if they decided to continue. So as far as I'm concerned, that is an aggressive what's the word? I can't find the word, but this is the first. I'm doing pretty good so far, but I'm happy I'm doing so well. But generally, these are things that are already in my head. I've already thought about already, and it's easy to come out. But in terms of new words and new concepts, something I haven't used before, I have difficulty communicating, pulling out these verbs and nouns. So, but otherwise I can talk forever if it's in my brain, because I sing, and this is like a song for me, which is stored in a different part of my brain and comes out for a different part of my brain. Collusion. So these people colluded together to make the judge even said they full well known that this was going to affect me in a certain way, and by doing it, they were going to have a certain effect on me. And just that concept all by itself is a negative, bully, antisocial activity, which was meant to affect me in a certain way and get me out of council. But prior to that, there was also an HR investigation on me. So I was only there for 3 months. There was an HR investigation done. They spent about $5,000 trying to figure out what kind of person I am. This HR investigator, who was also a lawyer, came into this situation figuring there's got to be something that Grant's responsible for. There's something that he did. We got to figure out what it is, and we're able to report this. But he remarked to me that fact, but he also said that he doesn't see anything that I've done. I am a strange character. I am weird. I'm different. And I have different opinions, and I may communicate differently or not be the way that they expect, and I may not be cooperating the way that other people expect, but that doesn't make me a bad person. And they investigated. They looked at all the emails. They listened to all of the meetings that were my first 3 months, and they found out that I was not responsible in any way, shape, or form. I was not negative. I was not offensive, and that should be it. So, but later on down the line, the town council said recently in the last meeting that I'm responsible for the first town clerk for leaving and for having that breakdown and for whatever transpired during that period of time. But the human resources investigators said I was not. So what exactly is happening here? How can a body that has been told that I was not responsible still be believing that I'm responsible? That means that their actions and whatever they're doing is based on the premeditated motive that they think that I'm still responsible. That means that they're having negative emotions towards me without logical construct. And then that would also mean that I would need to object to that information and do so strongly, which is what I'm doing and why I'm still talking about it. Because people out there still think that I'm an aggressor and I'm causing problems, but I'm causing problems in response to the influence or the input of others. And I'm responding properly, I'm responding responsibly, I'm responding legally, and I'm trying to same in the beginning, I was trying to let people know what the consequences of actions would be and where we're going with this and what options we have to make decisions. But none of this is being listened to. Most of these people don't have experience in corporate Canada, in boardrooms and stuff. They're operating in a different way than what you'd expect. I kept this analogy to myself up until now because I didn't want to offend the local grocery store clerk. But these small towns are being run like little grocery stores, little convenience stores. They have no depth of human resources, no depth of financial analysis, no depth of security or information technology. All these little side businesses or professions that exist inside of corporations. None of these little tiny towns have this. And part of this municipal reform is that I'm trying to ask municipal affairs and the government that to basically put things in place, a contractor in place, for instance, to act as a human resources person or a common group of people to talk to about problems. Because councillors, I found, do not have anyone to communicate with, not even municipal affairs. They're not there for the councillor. And I'm not saying that lightly. They're there for the town, and not even the humans of the town. They're there for the municipality of the long living town. They got no vested interest in the individuals because I'm equal as a councillor, the same as all the other councillors are. So right now they're municipal affairs and the town of Musgrave Harbour plus councillors against Grant. But when the tables are turned, those councillors are no different than me as being a councillor, and they will be eaten up and chewed out in such a nonchalant way, the same as I have been. So after all of this, after me saying I'm not going to back down, I am not going to have my vaccination, I don't want to, and later on in the line, a lot of people have changed their minds. So this is not a bad decision. It's just that I've stood up strong. I was a public servant, and I was told that I need to do this. It's like a little chilly here. I got to turn my heat up. So because I'm an elected official, I am able to speak up. I have the advocate site. I have a platform to speak. I have an opinion and a group of people that agree with me. So what am I to do? I need to continue on with what I was elected for. It was only 3 months ago that I was elected on the platform of accountability, transparency, and municipal reform. Now I'm being pushed and having to react and do something that has to do with accountability and transparency, municipal reform, and they're surprised that I actually follow through. And some people are actually surprised. I started getting messages saying, what do you think you're doing, and why are you doing this? It's embarrassing. I voted for you, but now I changed my mind. Well, I don't think you did vote for me, because if you did, you didn't look at any of the information that I had sent out, and you haven't been paying attention as to why I'm going into being municipal councilor to begin with. So, that's the most confusing part about all this. A lot of people say that they've taken back their votes and that I've changed, but nothing's changed. Nothing's happened. Nothing's been proven to be me doing anything. All this has been me in response to what's been done. And this is all within the first 3 months of me being elected, which I've been found to be not responsible for. This is both with the HR investigator and also the Supreme Court of Newfoundland. So here we are, me having to go through court to fight this, and it took a year to do it. In the meantime, I was still interacting with the town, still going to town council meetings, listening to them remotely and stuff, and still talking about things online, still fighting about the same issues, and still being a force, I guess we'll say, against the town hall. As this progressed, the Musgrave Harbour hate site was created. This was an amazing job, Franco. I got to say, you did an awesome job in stirring up a lot of hate and getting a lot of people on the site, a lot of people talking about me, a lot of awesome stories, sort of like the National Enquirer. It was really cool. From that perspective, me looking at from the outside in a non-objective way, it's pretty awesome. But as a person on the inside who is being the focus of it, it was quite terrible. So I really disapprove of that. But through all this time, the hate got created. It got stirred up. It got stronger, and it changed. Again, the ability to not speak and not communicate concepts, but just being able to observe information and then interpret your reality based on the information provided is a very powerful thing that creates hate or whatever reality is in your head, and that could cause a lot of trouble. And it did. There's a lot of awkward and touchy things going on in this world today that's got nothing to do with me and this council over here. And it's different people have different opinions. I'm not a hateful person myself. I don't hate anybody. I very much displease and have displeasure over people who are mean or hateful towards me. But I just reject them more so than anything. But anybody we're all humans. Anybody who loves, and I've got love for them. As simple as that. It doesn't matter who you are, and the inability to have a detailed conversation with and responding to brief information that we share online is not a fair platform to have any sort of discussion. And things got blown out of proportion, and it resulted. This happened when I was not in council. Then in September of 2022, the town's lawyers told the town that there was no reason for them to continue this lawyer court thing because there was nothing to gain out of it. And I estimate at this point in time there was only about $22,000 spent in lawyer fees. But they decided to go further, and then at the end of all, there was another $30,000 spent in the actual court. Resulting with the HR investigation to be close to $57,000 in the Let's Go After Grant slush fund, that they created out of nowhere, which is actually out of somewhere. But I'll try not to get lost in that just yet. We'll attend to that in a few moments if I remember. So the situation is that I got put back into the office, but all I wanted was a apology. I wanted accountability for them to say, yeah, Grant, we did this, we spent that, we shouldn't have did that, we apologize. It was a whole bunch of nothing for, a whole bunch of nothing, and we shouldn't have did it. And I wanted them to apologize to the town, because this is the town's money that they took and they spent for no good reason. You got to realize that there's nothing that I had done. This legal thing was them trying to get me out of the office, because they created a policy for remote attendance, and they made me not attend. And then because I was even online, they wouldn't let me speak. They considered me to be not attendant. They called for a vacation of my seat. So this is all malicious intent. This all by itself, for any good people, should be recognized as being something that is distasteful and give us favor for our reactions. Sure, I have made small mistakes. I've made faux pas or whatever. They weren't malicious. They weren't meant to be malicious. I'm sure any discussion or exploration of the concept would have been able to, to figure that out. For instance, when I brought information from the park committee to the council, and I was all excited about wanting to talk about the things that we discussed, I found out that it wasn't the right protocol. But this was a bad thing from the people involved in that meeting. They figured I shouldn't have did it, and that I was a bad person. And because of that, the town had an outcry about me, and also that had to do with someone else being aggressive in a meeting with the park committee, and it also had to do with the collusion of those people, and the fact that I shouldn't be calling government officials to talk about things, because it's not my place and I'm not a delegate, which is a whole new layer of complication of what a councilor should be about. And when I speak to people such as the citizens representative for complaints and such, they even said, "Are you sure that's the case? That you're not supposed to contact anybody in government to communicate on anything unless you're a delegate?" That doesn't make sense to me as a citizen. I figure the councilor, they're your delegate. If you have issues with them, you go talk to them and they figure things out. Like the issue with the grocery store, for instance. Someone had an issue with it, a citizen. I brought it to the council, and I tried to communicate with the people about that. But that was a whole bad thing. I shouldn't have did that. I was really bad to have tried to figure that thing out. And because of that, and all kinds of other things that's occurred, as with me responding to the other councillors' negative behavior, has turned into a councillor code of conduct investigation against me. This is a comedy of errors. There's been two union grievances taken out against me. The councillor code of conduct, they're doing things like the business tax with no appeal process. So they can just choose to arbitrarily apply a business tax without any conversation, figuring out what dates are associated with that business tax. It's just pay whatever we say, and we're not going to give you any reason why we think that, but you just got to do it anyway because we said, and then not communicating with you anymore because they've said all they need to say, and they're just going to follow through and make it that I'm going to lose my seat again in January because I'm not paying taxes associated with my wife. My wife has sent them an email and communicated on it. I haven't gotten a response back from that. It's her that's being taxed. Why am I being taxed? Why is the house being taxed? It's not me. So does that mean that everybody in the family, if they wanted to have a business or a hobby, in terms of what the town calls it, a hobby that makes money, then everybody in the house should be taxed differently? So that means that if there was 5 people in the house and all 5 people had a hobby that made money, that I'd be taxed 5 times? And then who's to decide what dates to use? This is all games, and it's easy to see for anyone paying attention. And that's the part that frustrates me the most in dealing with these people on Facebook and people just liking things randomly just because they feel for the moment that they want to support somebody and give me an extra kick as they're walking by. Is that you don't know the full story. It's just it doesn't have any depth. It's just a random like, and because it's totally false, it's not even accurate. The persons liking this are just being fools because they're going, yeah, let's just randomly like this thing, even though I don't understand it and I believe it, even though it's fully wrong. I'm going to like it anyway because I feel that way. But that's what causes the problems in the community, is because people are jumping on the bandwagon without actual thoughts. It's because they're embarrassed of my behavior. I've made this comparison a few times. Some people don't like it, and some people even called me out on it, but I still believe it to be true. It's as if a person is abused by a person of authority, and then that person goes back to their mother or their father or whatever, and they go, "Hey, so and so abused me and did this to me, and I'm confiding in you, and I'd like you to know this because I want your love and I want to feel protected by you." And then the person of authority, the mother or whatever, the father, slaps him in the face and says, "Why are you talking about that way and about that person? That person is such a great person, and they would never do that. And you're saying this thing out of malice, and you're the bad person because this happened to you, because you're the person causing the embarrassment. Don't you ever say that again." That's basically what's happening in this situation, is that I'm the person causing the embarrassment. I'm the nail that's sticking out. I'm what needs to be hammered down in order to make the problem go away. And it's the easy way. It's the easy way to get rid of me, because then the problem goes away. There's no more embarrassment. But you're not looking at the problem as it is, as the big picture. And the reason why I'm standing up for this is because it's our future. If I can't interact, then nobody's going to be able to interact. It's just going to be the select few who has vested interests or powers, or they're able to pay money, or they have favors, or they're cronyism, brothers, families, friends, and people who you scratch my back, I'll scratch yours. It's not for the people who are living the life. It's for the people who are the bosses, the people who are the leaders with no accountability. I guess it's a good time to talk about this at this point. I've come to the conclusion, and a firm conclusion, by speaking with a lot of people, a lot of councilors, lawyers, speaking to the people involved, municipal affairs, the complaints process. The municipality has nobody to answer to except for the voters themselves when voting time comes, the collective of the voters in terms of embarrassment or the public pressure, or the legal process. That's it. Nothing else. All decisions are the decisions of the town if they make those decisions. And if they want to do it, they can do it. And there's no one going to stop them. The reason is because the legal process is the only thing that can stop them. If nobody says, "You can't do that, let's go to court and talk about it," then it's not going to stop. Nobody's going to press charges. It doesn't go away. So, for instance, like the saying that you can't record public meetings. That's just bull. It's a public meeting. It's meant to be public recorded. Any excuse to try to talk about why it's not a public meeting has already been thought about before you thought about the excuse. Saying that the town clerk is not a public person. It's not true. The legislation says she is a public person. She's part of the public process. She is a public servant, and her identity should be known and could be known and is known. To hide it is oblivious to any logic. So you even think that you could hide it or make it secret or not talk about it publicly, or even think that you would want to block it out on a Access to Information Act. It just doesn't work because it's a public person. The logic just doesn't work. But that's the problem when information gets out in the community, is that a lot of people don't have the experience to think in this way, to think critically. It's not to say you're not smart or nothing, because different people have different skills and different people have different abilities. And I can't do a lot of things. That doesn't mean that I'm not smart. It's just I don't know that thing. And to say that people in this community who are in power just don't know a lot of things is a fair thing to say. The people aren't incompetent in general. They're able to do a lot of great things, but they're incompetent in the things that are necessary to make decisions or to get the support on what to do. In the beginning, there was a unanimous vote when I was still in council during his first 3 months to check with a lawyer to see whether or not I could publicly record public meetings. We voted unanimously. It was never done because there was no need. In a later meeting, it said there was no need to spend this money at this time because, we don't believe it to be we don't believe us to be able to do it. So it was never decided on whether or not I can record public meetings. So this became a problem. Then they created another policy that said you can't record public meetings. And then I had a problem with that because Again, accountability, transparency, and municipal reform. This is my platform. What do you expect me to do? We're talking about it. But they did not want to talk about it. What was I supposed to do? Go to Facebook and talk about it. Try to get conversation going about it. Try to object to it. Be strong about it. Try to blab my mouth and as some people said, spiel about things, because there's lots of stuff in my head and lots of things that could be shared. I'm up to 56 minutes right now, to tell you these things. What can I say? I can keep going on forever. There's a lot more to this than what meets the eye. And that's the part that's missing in a lot of people's logic. It's easy to jump to, well, Grant must be responsible because this stuff never happened until Grant was here. But I'm just a person uncovering the issue. I'm the catalyst. Because I'm here, I'm the magnet. And I'm attaching to the things that need to be transparent and where accountability needs to be set and to reform what needs to be reformed. And the people involved just don't want me to do it. And they're objecting to it. And what's happening is because they're objecting to it, a lot of people are going, well, why don't you leave these poor people alone? Why are you objecting, Grant? Why are you still at this stuff? They already said no. They made the rules up. Why don't you just take it for what it is? Why don't you take a no for an answer? Because, again, the town has no one to answer to except for public pressure, the voting process itself, or the legal process. So if there's anything illegal, then it needs to be spoken about by me speaking about it. So before I got put back into office again after being away for a year, I was speaking with Municipal Affairs and I was trying to figure out, what can I do in order to get reintegrated back into the office here, and what can I do in order to prepare myself to talk about the things that I know we're going to end up having to talk about. So being away for a year, I knew that we're going to be talking about recording policy. I knew we were going to be talking about, social media, and I knew we were going to be talking about remote attendance, vaccination policies, and I wanted to make sure that was spoken about. So I looked into the rules of procedure for the town. Again, I'm fully aware of what I can and cannot do. I research. I take in information. Even though I stutter, I'm not stuttering right now because, again, it's coming out of my singing part of the brain. But even though I stutter and have trouble communicating, I'm able to absorb information and then process it and then put it out in a way to be digested by people. So I know exactly what can and cannot be done. I knew before I did it that the policy and procedure of the town said that there was something called standing on a point of order. Now, standing on a point of order is a parliamentary procedure. It's something in Canada that says that if there's something that happens in a decision that's been made in Parliament, that a MP could stand on a point of order to say, hey, stop, listen, there's something wrong, we need to talk about this, this is a major problem, let's figure this stuff out, that they can do so. This sounds like a reasonable thing to do, right? If something's wrong, something's really bad, there should be a provision in place to stand up and say, hey, there's something really bad happening. Well, that's what standing on a point of order is. And according to many people's charters, the parliamentary procedure is what's fashioned after their local ways of doing things in their board meetings and stuff. So, running a board, so just damned to be, conflicts and things, and you need to be able to know the rules and figure out how to get through them. So they said, let's do what we're doing at the parliamentary level, because they already figured it out, right? So a lot of boards have charters, and it actually says, let's do what it says in the parliamentary procedures. But in and of itself, boards operate like a parliamentary because that's just the accepted way of doing things. But in this situation, in the rules of procedure for the town, it says, let's follow Robert's Rule of Order, which is basically a explanation about how to interpret all the rules of running a board. And around all this information, there's also other information in this rules of procedure that says how to run the board. And basically these are things that's saying, if you have trouble with this, take a look at Robert's Rule of Order, and it'll explain what these things in this list in the rules of procedure mean. And, it's basically definitions, we'll say. So I contacted Municipal Affairs and I said, what can I do? I noticed that there's a standing on point of order. Is that something that I should do? Because I'd like to bring up the fact that when they say, is anybody recording? I'm going to have to say, yes, I am. I'm recording. And then at that point, there's going to be problems. So what can I do to avoid these problems? And they said, well, communicate with your town. I said, well, I'm communicating with my town. I'm letting them know what I'm trying to do, why I'm doing it, and I let them know that they can't do it, but they still have problems with it, and they've made policy up saying that I can't record a public meeting, and that's something I want to bring up too in that meeting. And it's my first meeting back after being gone for a year. I haven't gotten an apology or anything, and what am I going to do about all this? This is the frustrations of doing this stuff. I shouldn't have to do this. There should be some discussions happening at the town council, and we should figure this out as a group, like responsible people do, and come to conclusions. If not, I'll be found to be the aggressor. I'll be found to be not correct in my thoughts, and we'll come to that conclusion. Then we'll move on. That's just the way that respectful people communicate. So I was coming back from being away after a year, and I knew that as soon as the town asked, "Is anybody recording?" I'm going to have to say yes, and I did. But I prepared myself in terms of why I said yes and what I was going to say standing on point of order. I also prepared what I was going to say if there was going to be issues. So if the mayor didn't let me speak, what I was going to say then. If there was going to be outburst, what I was going to do then. I predicted that there was possibly going to be, calling the meeting to an end and clearing the room. I knew that I had to express myself then and get my point across. So I decided that I was going to read my entire presentation into my recorder so that I can put it up on the internet afterwards so people would have accountability and transparency. The mayor called the meeting to an end instead of hearing what I had to say and discussing what me standing on a point of order. From between the municipal affairs saying that I could do whatever's in the rules of procedure and me going to the town, me emailing the town and letting them know what Municipal Affairs said, and then me getting to the town and actually trying to stand on point of order, they actually came to the conclusion that I couldn't stand on a point of order and that it was not part of the rules of procedure and it was taken out in some point in time in history, even though I've got an access to information request with the town clerk to provide me with this information in terms of when it did get taken out. They can't provide it. Again, they're creating new rules as they go. So even though I tried to do what was right, I tried to do what was logical and of good people, talk to who's involved, figure out the rules, try to look at what needs to be done, and then playing by the rules, they claimed that I couldn't do what I was supposed to do. I was out of order by trying to do what I was trying to do, even though I tried to figure it out. They had no mediation offered to me from Municipal Affairs because they don't do that. The town took no responsibility in terms of what got us there and why I was gone for a year and the money that they had spent. I was angry that they had spent, not angry I suppose, but I was upset that they had spent $57,000 of the town's money. They said they had no money. I knew that they were almost gone to a controller in the previous council, and they saved themselves from being put to the controller. I knew the previous town clerk was so proud that they saved themselves with the controller, and I was happy of that as well. It was really great. And when they said that they didn't understand my community garden and thought that they had to spend money, and they said they had no money, and then they spent $57,000 fighting me, it just doesn't make sense. The logic here doesn't click. And from someone coming from an ethical position with morals and stuff, and having been elected on, again, accountability, transparency, and municipal reform. When I came back, I'm going to be doing accountability, transparency, and municipal reform. What do you expect? I'm standing up for what's right and standing up for what needs to happen. And then having all these people in the community being so vile towards me because of me taking these decisions and making these stands, meanwhile doing nothing wrong. Nobody can actually put their finger on what exactly I did wrong. And that's what blows our mind the most, is that people have issues with this and they say things to us that may make sense on a macro level based on the situation as it progressed and got us to this point. That how does this compare to the big story? They may have a point, but when you try to take a look at the big picture about what got us here, it wouldn't have gotten us here if the people involved in this situation had not made poor decisions and made them maliciously and against me on purpose and wasted your money as citizens. So where did this money come from? who decided to spend this money? When I was in council, I voted with everyone else unanimously to spend all of the gas tax on the fire hall. It's supposed to be spent to pay off pay off the mortgage, so they're not going to have to pay mortgage every month, and they're not have to pay interest on the mortgages. Now somehow, the decision was changed to take that money and spend it on operational expenses, and so it was spread out in different places. Now, it's not going to be found, I don't think, because there's a controller assigned to investigate where that money went. There's $57,000 missing from the gas tax, but it's not going to be found, I don't think, that the money was taken out of various places, such as operational expenses, and put into the Let's Fight Grant legal battle slush fund, and then in a roundabout way taken from the gas tax. It's not going to be found that way. I don't think so, especially because the people involved in making the decisions to bring me to court and to put me through this process are the same people doing the investigation, Municipal Affairs. So even though Municipal Affairs claims that they are not able to offer legal advice to the town or legal advice to councillors, they do offer advice, and the advice is based on legislation. And then the ability to do the things that are in the legislation is, in a roundabout way, legal advice, even though the town makes the decisions to do it themselves. But when the councillor communicates with them, they still point at the same legislation, but the information from the legislation is translated by the town. So as long as the town translates it in a certain way, it doesn't matter what the councillor translates it as, because the Municipal Affairs is there for the benefit of the town itself, but not the councillors and not the town clerk. So the advice that the town clerk and the councillors took was the ability to do certain things, such as tax people, create dog laws, create curfews, create business taxes. Oh, by the way, business taxes. People from outside the community, contractors, they have to pay money on the cost of their job. So after they're done their job, they need to go back to the town, say, your citizen paid me $4,000, so now I need to pay you a tax on the $4,000 that they just paid me in order for me to pay my fee to the town for this transaction as an outside contractor who does not live in your community. That's a mob tax. I've got access to information requesting on that to figure out who came up with that idea. But I digress. I'm waiting for the information before I talk about it. So the information that the town took to get us here was the information made by the employee, the representative from Municipal Affairs, and she happens to be the same person doing the investigation. So the people involved in the investigation to help the town make the decision to bring me to court and spend the $57,000 are the same individuals who are doing the investigation to figure out where the $57,000 went. And that is why it is a fraud. That is why the RCMP needs to be involved. But when I contacted the RCMP, they said, well, there's a controller involved. They're doing an investigation, so let's see what the result of that investigation is. So now we need to wait until the investigation's over, see what they find, and see whether or not they're biased or not, see if they're actually qualified to investigate themselves. Speaking of investigates themselves, the people involved in the debacle to get us here and making all these bad decisions, claiming that I am a bad person, have a councillor code of conduct against me, and they're the same people who are supposed to do the investigation in this time around. So the policy has changed since the HR investigator was put on, and now they get to do it themselves if they so desire. They could have HR investigators do it again, but it's going to cost more money. So they can do it themselves, but they can't. They haven't found themselves to be in conflict of interest, even though I've told them they're in conflict of interest. I've told them that they need to be able to bring in the information from the audios from the first 3 months and talk about what's brought us here in order for it to talk about a councillor code of conduct, because my conduct is in relationship to how we got here and the policies that they created. So some of the conduct issues they have is me being on Facebook talking about things, So the policy that they created is put me in jeopardy to have a councillor's code of conduct made against me. But in the same regards, though, when a citizen has an issue or multiple citizens has an issue in regards to the dress code of the people at the town hall, that complaint doesn't fly. That complaint doesn't get brought forward to the town. It doesn't get discussed on a serious matter, but it's actually policy. It's actually in the policies and procedures, the rules procedures for the town. So where exactly does the logic lie? If they have a piece of paper and it's the policies and procedures for the town, they're trying to put their power onto the community. They're trying to say these are the bylaws, these are the rules, and then when people try to follow the rules, they say, well, those rules aren't accurate anymore because there's actually new rules and we haven't got them updated yet. But we're going to, it is the way it is though, and it sucks, and you can't participate and you can't communicate. And then they do a council code of conduct against me, and they find me guilty. Go figure. So, twice within 2 years, I was put in jeopardy of losing my seat in collusive and malicious ways. Business tax that doesn't have a way to discuss, council code of conduct that doesn't have a way to discuss, and back with the changing the rules so I couldn't participate. Anybody can see that this is collusion and malicious intent, because anybody with a good heart would try to find out solutions that would work well for everybody. One of the things, for instance, is allowing a councillor to speak full sentences in public meetings. So, to conclude, I've got to get ready for work, but to conclude, when I see people talking to me on Facebook and having issues with me and liking strange comments by people who should know better, and not taking into consideration what got us here and making statements that they feel is right, or little kicks, like I said. Like, I haven't even looked at the message from the shop owner to see what she had said since I've recorded this message. It's been almost 24 hours since I've sent my last messages to Facebook and said things to people. I've seen that people have responded. I'm not putting my energy into that right now. I've got other things to do. I've got to go to work in a few minutes. I'm going to wait another 8 hours or so, and I'm going to have to edit this video to take out the parts that are awkward. When I went and changed the heat, for instance, or had to fix my light, or got repositioned or whatever. And, this takes up a lot of time. All of the things I do take up a considerable amount of time, whether it be fighting in court, whether it be talking on videos, whether it's preparing for town council meetings, whether it's communicating with government officials, all of these things, all these professional and things that you would expect from somebody who's got precision in what they do and have something good to offer the community. But you've got tied up in hate, ladies and gentlemen, and it's disappointing to see the people out there who are still against us, still putting in kicks when they can, still having negative statements against us, joining in on the hate and thinking they're right when they don't even know the full story. And when I haven't been given the opportunity to speak my points and explain myself in council, it's like all these good things that you'd expect from good people weren't followed. But, and then you've got a problem with that, and I've got a problem with you having a problem with that. And that leaves us at a very precarious point. It makes me a little stubborn because I'm thinking through this quite thoroughly and with ethics, and you don't know the full story, but you're lashing out at me with hate. And I don't have the time to be looking at all these messages and putting my energy into this. I have a family. Like people are saying for me to do, go back with your family. Why do this stuff? Because I should be able to do the things I was elected to do and also have fun with my family. Also go out to the grocery store. Also interact with my community. Go up to the hockey rink and shovel snow and different things that I like to do. Go to the beach and enjoy it. Go to the park. But I can't because there's a tag on my back. And my children are bullied about it. My wife is bullied about it. Out in public, and that's not a minor thing. It's a serious thing, and all of these things accumulate, I guess is the right word, into me having my back up continuously about things on this topic. And anybody who objects to what got us here and agrees to the decisions that were made to get us here, I detest you. I'm sorry, even though I love you, I detest you. Because there's nothing else that I can feel for the situation. I try to tell you what I feel. I try to explain myself, but nothing ever works. And if you still feel as though you're right, even though I try, and you're not giving me the exception to be a human and to be compassionate towards me and allow me to be mistaken and to have my rights and to do what's good for me and my family, then you are the problem. It's not me. And if you are mistaken, then you need to get your emotions under control. And you need to stand up for what's right. You need to ask the right questions. You need to leave your mind open to be mistaken. You need to leave your mind open to be corrected, like I do. And if you believe that any of this, after me committing over an hour and 10 minutes or whatever into doing this before I had to go to work, and you think that I enjoy doing it and I'm doing it maliciously, then something needs to change in you. You know, you are contributing to the hell that has been created by hateful people or people who do not have any moral guidance systems. And I don't say that lightly, because if they did, they would make decisions that would have gotten us into a different situation, and we would have discussions, and people would treat me like a human. And if you don't believe that I was treated, that you don't believe that I was treated like a human, then you're listening to the wrong audios. And if you have listened to those audios and you still believe I'm an aggressor, then you are part of the problem. You are the problem. Not part of the problem. You are the problem. This world is never going to grow with people like yourself around here. And that's what needs to happen. Good people need to stand up and call a spade a spade. Not be worried about the bullies out there who are acting against me for standing up. When I first got involved, people who were interested in communicating and supporting me publicly told me I can't do this anymore. I'm being attacked online by people who don't like you, Grant. There are lots of people out there like that, more than who are against me. They talk to me privately. They talk to me one-on-one on Messenger. They've listened to things. They understand the story. They can relate. They told me things that they've heard in these audios, and they relate the stories about what's happened to me back to me, and they understand. And they tell me that I'm right. And there's more of them than there are you. Please, good people, realize that. There's more good people than there are bad people. And if only you were to stand up, this would be a whole different world. And that's who I'm standing up for. When I'm long dead and gone, my children are going to inherit this earth, and your children too. And if people in power can treat me this way, and they're going to treat your children this way and worse. I'm not kidding about that. I'm not a Chicken Little. I don't go around spouting conspiracy theories. But I do think through things carefully and critically and assess things properly. And that's what you, as a town and as a community, needs. But unfortunately, you've pushed me away. Hopefully we can get on the other side of this hate and we can turn into love. Hopefully this video will help you do that. But I must let you know that I will no longer be responding to any negativity. I'll be reposting this video basically as reference to any negativity that comes from you guys to wonder what my motives are. You need to step up, smarten up, and become good people. Because if you're not acting in a positive way, you're part of the problem. But I got to go to work. Take care of yourselves, and let's see each other on the other side. God bless.